What's going on, everybody? Um, Thank you again, as always, for joining. Definitely, I appreciate you taking the time, to give me and to give us your attention for this little bit while we try to provide a little bit of value. Discussing right now, we're going through the book, The Law of Human Nature, by Robert Greene. Going through that law right now as we speak, The Law of Human Nature by Robert Greene. So right now, we're going to go into Law 7, the Law of Defensiveness. So, like I said, I want to welcome you to the Black Women's Club. This is a place that we have candid conversations about challenges that Black men face and how we can overcome them. So, the challenge that we're working on this quarter is really about self-awareness, knowing how to recognize things in our lives that can be tweaked, that can help us to become better, over time. And so, right now, this law we're going to discuss will be the law of defensiveness. Now, in this law that Robert Greene pretty much wrote in the book, it talks about our natural defensiveness can sometimes warp our perception of reality, leading to conflict, missed opportunities, pretty much for growth, things like that this law discussed. But the question is could we transform sensitivity into our strength, being vulnerable into your strength? And my answer to that is yes, we can. So, a couple discussion points that we're gonna go into. The first discussion point, I want to break down the anatomy of defensiveness. Pretty much, why do we get defensive, and what does it reveal about us? If you been reading the book with me, then you know that in this the story that he uses in this one is the story of Lyndon B. Johnson, one of our former presidents, and how his rise to power became, how he took his took that influence to be able to come to the position that he was in as the president of the United States. So, on psychology.com, defensiveness pretty much is often a reaction to feeling criticized, which can trigger an emotion such as shame, sadness, or anger. A lot of times, those are the emotions that it really triggers. A lot of times, it triggers anger for the most part initially, because you're now wanting to defend your character, defend who you are or what you think you represent as a person, right? Now, this defensive behavior, it may manifest in various ways, including like verbal attacks. It could be denial, it could be fabrications, it could be avoidance, and even sometimes, as we call it now, gaslighting, where you try to make somebody feel as though what they're doing is wrong. So defensiveness is a complex. It's pretty much kind of like a complex trait, though. It's influenced by personality, characteristics, a need for control, difficulties managing emotions, which is why we're having this conversation. Because if we go back to Law 1 all the way to now, it's about controlling your emotions, being aware of who you are, understanding these different personality characteristics, traits, and ways to recognize those, and then turn around and, for lack of a better term, overcome them, or have a better strategy to turn that shadow side into a light side. And now, so a lot of people pretty much become defensive in different ways. They may be trying to avoid accountability, um, maybe get the other person to back off, uh, sh- all types of different things. So let's talk about some examples of pretty much some real life examples of where defensiveness escalated in certain situations unnecessarily, right? And I'm going to use one example from me personally. A lot of people say I'm a very confrontational person when it comes down to just having a discussion. Some people sometimes say that I'm very argumentative. And I'm not argumentative in the sense to try to prove you wrong. When I'm having these discussions or conversations, it's for me to try to understand you. It's not trying to discredit what you believe in, none of that stuff. A lot of times it's just really to get an understanding of how you see it or your perspective. But I guess the way that sometimes I come off as, it may seem like I'm trying to be argumentative about your point or about the way you view it. But that's just me probing to see really what your viewpoint really is, and the root of it, and not saying that you're wrong. It's just trying to figure out really your character, and does your character match what your viewpoint is. And it doesn't mean that you're a horrible person if it doesn't match. That's not what I'm saying. But when I have these conversations with people, they tend to get very defensive because they think that I'm attacking them or attacking their character, when I'm not really trying to attack them. I'm just trying to get some information so that way I can understand where they're coming from on their side, because I need sometimes more clarity exactly as to which or to why they feel the way they feel, or to why they think the way they think, or why they acting the way they're acting. It's not that I think you're a horrible person. It's that I'm trying to understand the why behind it. And giving a blanket statement doesn't help me understand the why or the reasoning, because I'm a people person. So I want to get to know who you are and why you do the things that you do. So that's just one example from my life, from real life situations. Now, let's use just a blanketed statement or a blanket overall example. Let's say you're in the workplace, and you know how in the workplace, when we're doing, let's say you're doing, you have a job to be, let's say let's say we're working at McDonald's, right? Let's say we're just working at McDonald's. You're a cook in McDonald's. You're working the fries and you're working the burger station. You're working both. That's your section of work. I'm the person that's working the cash register up front. I'll go back there and I'm saying, hey man, what's taking the fries so long? What's taking the burger so long? You may think that I'm trying to attack you and your performance, but I'm not trying to do those things. What I'm asking is a serious question, because we have customers that we have to, you know, to give information back to tell them exactly what's going on, and trying to estimate how long their food may take. It's not saying that you're slow. It's not saying that you're stuck at what you're doing. But if I'm the person that's hearing the message coming from the receiver, I mean coming from the sender to the receiver. Now, let's say I'm the receiver. I'm the person now cooking the fries, making the burgers. I'm hearing, man, why is it taking so long? I can get very defensive, thinking that, hey, you're trying to criticize my performance. You're trying to say that, oh, I take forever, that I'm not doing my job appropriate, all types of stuff. And a lot of times it doesn't stem from it doesn't stem from what the person says. It stems from how we as a receiver sometimes took it. And that takes a lot of us to look at ourselves, because as human beings, we're very cognizant of other people's opinions of us. We think that their opinions matter of us, when it really does not matter of us. Their opinion does not matter. But the problem is that we try to reflect our opinion of ourselves onto other people, try to make them feel like, hey, you're thinking I suck at doing my job. They never said that. You said that about yourself internally, but now you're projecting that onto somebody else, which then makes you become very defensive, because now you're thinking that that person is questioning your character, your performance, your judgment, and so forth. But it may not even be any of that. It could just be the fact that they're just asking you a simple question. The tone may have been off, possibly. If the tone is off, there's a chance that that could trigger some defensiveness. Um, so that's just one. That's like one example. Now, if you're out there in the audience, please, if you have any examples like this, that like where you can give an example of how someone triggered you to become defensive, please put in the comments, put it in down below in the comment section. And also, when you do that, list what did you realize or what did you recognize after the fact. What triggered that? Was it the words? Was it the tone? Was it what you thought that person said about you, or how you felt about yourself? What was it that made you triggered to be so defensive? And don't get twisted, we all get defensive. I've gotten defensive plenty of times about things that I've done or things that I've said, because I feel like my character is being attacked. And so when my character is attacked, that's when we get on the defensive a lot of times, right? So for me, some strategies that I employ that's not in the book yet, but we're gonna go about the strategies in the book. Some of the common strategies that you can employ is self-awareness, right? We preaching, and harping on self-awareness. That's the first thing I think everybody needs to understand, is how to be self-aware. Yes, it's not. It's a process. It's not a instant gratification thing. It doesn't snap to you right away. You have to learn how to be diligent and intentional about being aware of your reactions, your responses, the way that you interact with other people, your viewpoints, your character. Are you that person that are you becoming that person that you need to become? What's triggering you? All those things, right? One of some other strategies I like to apply is active listening. Uh, Took me a while to really do the active listening part because I talk a lot. My wife will tell you I will talk a lot, but it's not that I'm not listening, but it can portray that I'm not listening by me talking. But it's not that I'm talking over you. I heard what you said. I interpreted. And I'm trying to come back and get clarification. Right. That's the way I communicate. And it's not to be pushing back on what you're saying. It's so that I make sure that I'm clear of what you're saying to me. Um, Other one is pausing before reacting. I was horrible at that. I was not very good at pausing before reacting. A lot of times, a button get pushed and I react right away. Nowadays, I'm trying to pause. Being very conscious of or cognizant of pausing. Trying to make sure that I am aware. Hey, you're getting triggered. You're getting angry. Step back, relax, pause, think it through, then react. Versus just instantly reacting to something which can be which if I'm leading with, that makes me lead with my emotions first without thinking about really did they mean that is really going through the whole entire Rolodex of breaking the problem down that what made me feel that way versus just lashing out at somebody. The other strategy I would say is reflecting. um I would say, like I said, reflecting on the reasons behind why I feel that way. That's why that pause moment is very critical because then it gives me the time to reflect, and then to help develop that empathy. Because just because I'm triggered doesn't mean that you meant to trigger me. And now I gotta understand if I was on the other end of that and I'm the one now getting lashed out at, how would that feel? The empathy piece is putting myself in other people's shoes, being understanding. It's not having sympathy where I'm I'm trying to be like, woe is me, or I feel sorry for. It's not that I feel sorry for you, is that I understand what you're going through because we're humans. We have the same kind of experience. So if you're feeling disrespected, I can understand why you feel disrespected. So then my thing is, well, what did I do to make you feel disrespected, right? Um, so that's a couple of the tips. Now, the ones that's in the book. So if you have the book, it's on page 188. This page right here, 188. So he gave Robert Greene listed 5 strategies for becoming a master persuader. Because when you become defensive, you're not on the offense, meaning that you're not trying to use your influence the right way. Using your influence for the wrong thing to pretty much um, to react and to get back at people versus reacting to influence or to change or persuade something. And the reason why he named it that, because if you read the story that he used to lay out, which was about Lyndon B. Johnson, how he went from a man with big ambitions to getting elected for Congress at I think age 28, to then becoming, being a part of the House, being and then going to the Senate, and then understanding the Senate is no longer the Senate is a massive place to be in. So he had to learn ways to rub elbows and develop influence and to get people on the side so that way he can pass certain laws or certain bills to get him to the higher level of the seat. What you wanted was the presidency. So the 5 strategies that Robert Greene gives us, the first one being transform yourself into a deep listener. Now, he said the reason for this is simple. We are more interested in our own thoughts, feelings, and experiences than in those of the other person. If this were not the case, we would find it relatively easy to listen with full attention. The usual prescription is to talk less and listen more. But this is meaningless advice as long as we prefer our own internal monologue. The only solution is to somehow Be motivated to reverse the dynamic. And that's what he means by transferring yourself into a deep listener. Instead of thinking about playing your mental monologue inside your head, give your attention to the other person to really hear what they have to say. So that way you can then take in what they said, come back and ask poignant questions, or to dig deeper for more clarification. So to make sure that you're not going to become triggered, right? Because it's really not about you for the most part. Now, the second strategy he said or he gave was infect people with the proper mood. And I understand why he put that one in there. When you read the actual book, when Lyndon B. Johnson wound up finding his strategy in order to make his way through the Senate. Let me see if I can find it for you so I can read you a little bit of it. All right. So in the House, his career kind of got bogged down. The place was so big and complex, and he was not good at dealing with large groups. This is Lyndon B. Johnson. He was not an exciting public speaker. He was much more charming in one-on-one situations. He became frustrated and restless. When he finally reached the Senate at age 40, though, right? What he did was his impatience kind of led him, because he had a meeting with Senator Connolly, and that's when he kind of realized that he had some impatience. So shortly after inauguration, he toured the floor of the Senate and had an epiphany. The place was much smaller. It was much more like a cozy club for gentlemen. Here he could work one-on-one and slowly gain power by accumulating influence. To accomplish this, however, he had to transform himself. He was naturally aggressive. He would have to rein in, slow down, and step back. He would have to stop talking so much and getting into heated arguments. Let other people do the talking. Let them feel like they're the star of their own show. Stop thinking of himself. Instead, focus completely on his fellow senators as they talked and talked. Assume the inoffensive front of a junior senator learning the ropes. The serious and somewhat dull student of procedure and legislation. Behind this front, he could observe people without seeming ambitious or aggressive. In this way, he could slowly gain knowledge of the inner working of the Senate, vote counting, how bills are actually passed, and insights into various senators, their deepest insecurities and weaknesses. So that's when he learned that. But then he started implementing that into action, where he became real close with Senator Johnson, kind of like a father figure. Senator Johnson was a very conservative man, Republican. He had a lot of power within the Senate at the time frame. A lot of people didn't really want to talk to him as much. Same thing with Senator Russell. And so Senator Russell was the one that he targeted. He targeted talking to Senator Russell, becoming kind of like his protege, to earn his confidence and learn information, learn how things worked. So that way, kind of like what Robert Greene talked about in the 48 Laws of Power: never outshine the master. What he did was he found a master, learned from the master, but never outshined the master. He never tried to put up a front in front of the master to say that he's better than this person or better than that person. Instead, he used them to gain influence, to gain understanding, and have somebody of power within his backing. So that way he can get certain things done that need to be done if necessary, which then made the other senators around the floor come to him as a person of influence as well. That's how he gained his influence, is by being latched on with two or three or four, or actually four different senators throughout the Senate, in four different corners. The four major senators that had influence within the Senate, Lyndon B. Johnson became their proteges, made them feel like he was their acolyte. So that's when he says would affect people with proper mood. So in the book, he says, as social animals, we are extremely susceptible to moods of other people. This gives us the power to subtly infuse into people the appropriate mood for influencing them. If you are relaxed and anticipating a pleasurable experience, this will communicate itself. So, like, you ever heard somebody smile through the phone and then they make you smile? It's because in their tone, the way that they talk, the way that they speak, you can hear the infection, you can feel the infectiousness and hear it through their tone and through the way that they deliver. Because on the other side, they're smiling while they're having this conversation with you, right? So, but you don't know that. But then if you're in that person's face and they're smiling, having a conversation with you, it will affect your mood. It will make you smile. That's just giving you a small example, right? Now, the third piece or third tool he gave was confirm their self opinion. You heard me read about it about Lyndon B. Johnson. Confirm their self opinion. If you have a mentor, that mentor is, let's say that mentor is let's say it's Eric the hip hop preacher, Dr. Eric Thomas, hip hop preacher, right? Let's say it's him. Most people know E.T. the hip hop preacher, very successful, number one motivational speaker in the world, duly noted. So let's say that he's my mentor, right? If he was my mentor and we had a conversation, he's feeling some type of way about let's say it's about the election or about God knows whatever else. I will listen. I'm not gonna always agree, but I'm gonna listen, take him in, and then maybe talk about that, the probe to see exactly why does he feel that way. But I'm not gonna try to deny his opinion, his self opinion of himself or what he believes in. I'm not gonna deny him that because he has the right to have that. But I'm not trying to confirm my opinion and try to put my opinion onto him to have him feeling like he has to agree with what I got to say. No, you're my mentor. I'm learning from you. I'm gonna listen to what you have to say because doesn't mean I have to take everything that you have to say in as gold, but I'm gonna take it in because we have a relationship and I trust you. Then yes, I'm gonna take in what you're talking about because you're living it. So he talks about how when he says that piece, he says, recall the universal qualities of self opinions of people with a high self opinion. Here's how to approach each one of them. Autonomy. No attempt at influence can ever work if people feel in any way that they are being coerced or manipulated. They must choose to do whatever it is you want them to do. For example, like if I ask you all to hit the like button, you don't have to hit the like button. I'm asking. I'm not demanding you hit the like button. I'm not saying none of that. I would love for you to hit the like button, but I'm not going to manipulate or coerce you to do such things. Um, but that's why it talks about confirming their self opinion. If you really like what we're putting out, hit the like button. That confirms your self opinion. But I'm not going to force you to do such or try to coerce you or manipulate you to do such things, right? Um, Another one he talks about within that same one is called intelligence. He says, when you disagree with another person and you impose your own contrary opinion, you are implying that you know better. I just said that you have thought things through more rationally. People challenged in this way will then naturally become even more attached to their opinions. You can prevent this by being more neutral, as if this opposing idea is simply something you are entertaining and it could be wrong. But better still, you can go much further. You see their point of view and you agree with it. With their intelligence flattered, you now have some room to gently alter their opinion or have lowered their defenses for a request for help. You don't always have to agree. Like, for example, if me and my wife get into it about who should have did what first, this and that, we ain't gotta. I'm not gonna argue about it. I just want to know your viewpoint and your opinion. Cool. Oh, I agree with that. I understand why I could have did this differently, better. Noted. I appreciate it. But I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I'm not saying that what you're saying is wrong because you do have an opinion. You have a voice in the matter. I'm not trying to say that you didn't think what you did, think through all the way and made it rational. What I'm saying is that, cool, I'm going to entertain your thoughts. I'm going to entertain your opinions. I'm going to take those in. I may even agree with some of them, but doesn't mean I agree with all of them. Doesn't mean that what you're saying is right, but I'm going to entertain it as though it's such. Now, the fourth one he says is ally their insecurities. In this part, he says everyone has particular insecurities about their looks, their creative powers, their masculinity, their power status, their uniqueness, their popularity, etc. Your task is to get a bead on these insecurities through various conversations you draw them into. Once you identify them, you must first be extra careful not to trigger them. People have grown sensitive, innate, antennae for any words or body language that may cast doubt on their physical appearance or their popularity or whatever their insecurity may be. Be aware of this and be on guard. Second, the best strategy is to praise and flatter those qualities that people are most insecure about. We all crave this, even if we somehow see through the person who is praising us. That is because we live in a tough world in which we are continually being judged, and yesterday's triumph is easily followed by tomorrow's failure. We never really feel secure. If the flattery is done right, we feel that the flatterer likes us, and we tend to like people who likes us. The key to successful flattery is to make it strategic. If you know that I'm particularly awful at basketball, praising me for my basketball skills in any way will ring false. But if I'm uncertain about my skills, if I imagine I am perhaps not really so bad, then flattery on that score can work wonders. So what he's saying is, don't just praise somebody just to try to gain their trust. Understand when to praise someone, when to be an ally to their insecurities, right? Don't point out their insecurities as something of a failure or a challenge for them. Instead, you can praise their insecurities, right? Like for me, right now, currently doing this live, I don't like being on camera. I hate being on camera personally. That's one of my insecurities. Is about the way I may sound, the way I may speak, whatever. That's just one of my insecurities. However, I'm working on getting past those things because I have information I want to give out and share with people. But once again, if someone say, "Man, you sound weird. You sound stupid, man. You da." It's gonna make me feel the type of way. Don't get twisted. I'm gonna feel some type of. I may feel mad, may get very defensive, but end of the day, it's just an opinion. I understand that now over time. But if you want to win somebody in your workplace that maybe a boss that is trying, you think it could be picking on you, but they insecure on certain things, you can use that as a way to flatter them. If they're insecure about, let's say they're insecure about public speaking, but when y'all talking one on one, they actually have good opinions, good points and so forth. People like, hey sir, hey sir, ma'am, or whoever, John, Bob, Melissa, whoever. But like, hey, you make some good valid points here. Why don't you take those things out when you go speak publicly? Because what you made perfect sense in here. Take the same quotes and the same confidence and exude that when you're speaking, because I know you can do it because you do it here all the time. That's outlining their insecurities. You're not judging them, saying that you're horrible at speaking. You should. No, you're not doing that. You're actually making them feel more comfortable, which then they lower their guard down and can trust you a little bit more. Now the fifth one and the last one is use people's resistance and stubbornness. That's very wild. He said that. And so what he said was some people are particularly resistant to any form of influence. There are most often people with deeper levels of insecurity and low self opinions. This can manifest itself in a rebellion attitude. We talked about it before about people who want to be the outsider because let's say everybody's wearing Jordans, right? That's just what people like to wear. But then you're like, man, Jordans are horrible. They suck. They don't look good. Nobody ever said they didn't look good. You just saying that because you want to be different than others. You're trying to rebel on purpose to be different than others. That's your whole thing, is trying to stand out. It's nothing wrong with not wearing Jordans. Nothing wrong with that. But to act like nobody should be wearing them, that's kind of like, it's asinine, dog. You're just trying to make yourself feel better by discrediting and disproving or not liking other things. Like when somebody hears a song on the radio and be like, man, I don't like that song. Okay, that's cool. You keep that opinion to yourself. That's cool. But if we playing the song and people are liking it, let other people enjoy it. You don't have to be a rebel. He says such types feel as if it's them against the world. They must assert their will at all costs and resist any kind of change. They will do the opposite of what the people suggest. They will seek advice for a particular problem or symptom, only to find dozens of reasons why the advice given won't work for them. He said the best thing to do is to play a game of mental judo with them. In judo, you do not counter people's moves with the thrust of your own, but rather encourage their aggressive energy, which is the resistance, in order to make them fall on their own. And he gave some ways. He talks about using their emotions, right? And he talks about in the book Change, the therapist author Paul Walzwick and et al. Pretty much discussed the case of a rebellious teenager suspended from school by the principal because he was caught dealing drugs. He was still to do his homework at home, but was forbidden to be on campus. This would put a big dent in his drug dealing business. The boy burned with the desire to get vengeance. So the mother consulted a therapist who told her to do the following: explain to her son that the principal believed only students who attended the class in person could do well. Play into his emotions. In the principal's mind, by keeping the boy away from school, he will ensure he will fail. If he did better by working at home than in class, this will embarrass the principal. See how he's trying to use that rebellious nature. Like when you, for example, your mom tell you not to go down the street with your bike. This is me. This is a personal example. My mom told me not to go down the street with my bike. What I do? I do the opposite. I go down the street with my bike, and then what happens? My bike gets stolen, and then I lie to my mom and tell my mom. I don't know. I let Ricardo borrow my bike. Who lets somebody borrow their bike and never gets it back? I never let nobody borrow my bike. My bike was just stolen, but because I wanted to be a rebel so badly to be around my friends, I went against what my mom said. Now, if my mom would have told me, "Hey, go ahead and take that bike down the road," I probably would have left that shit back. I probably would have left the bike back at the house and just walked. Because at the teenage years, you're just so rebellious. You try to do the opposite of whatever your parents are saying because you want to prove them that you're autonomous, that you can do everything else. You know the right way to do stuff. And you only been on the earth for no more than like 12 or 13 years. And you acting like you've been on earth longer than your parents. Like they was never a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, right? So what the mom did was pretty much reverse psychology on them. Said, hey, the principal think that you're gonna fail. He thinks you're gonna fail by you being at home. He said pretty much every student at school does well because they attend class in person. So you know what? If you want to make the principal look like a fool, do good while you're here. Pass while you at home to make the principal look like look like he don't know what he's talking about. Which the boy wound up doing. He wound up passing and passing and succeeding in that class to where, he did wind up, getting put back into school later, but his mom and the therapist tricked him to try to always play against his emotions, right? Another thing he said use their language. And this is from the guy in chapter 3, or law 3. The therapist Milton Erickson, he's the one that they talked about when they talked about role playing, right? So he says pretty much this is when the husband came to him for advice, although he seemed quite set on doing what he wanted to do anyway. He and his wife came from a very religious family and had married mostly to please their parents. The husband and wife were very religious as well. Their honeymoon, however, had been a disaster. They found sex very awkward and did not feel like they were in love. The husband decided it was not anyone's fault, but that they should get a friendly divorce. Erickson readily agreed with him and suggested exactly how to bring about this friendly divorce. He instructed him to reserve a room at a hotel. They were to have one final friendly night together before the divorce, friendlies in quotations. They were also to have at least one last friendly glass of champagne, one last friendly kiss between them, and so on. These instructions virtually ensured the wife's seduction by her husband. As Erickson had hoped, the husband followed his instructions. The couple had an exciting evening together, and they happily decided to remain married. So did was he used the language of friendly because they felt like they got married only to please their parents when they really got married to also please each other and because they loved each other. but they want to get a friendly divorce. So he used the word friendly when he was suggesting things for him to do one last time. And it backfired on the husband and the wife, and now they remain happily married. They didn't want to get a friendly divorce. He talks about also using their rigidity against them as well. And you can go look more into the book. I'm not gonna go over every last one. That's the last one anyway, but I'm not gonna go over every last part. But I definitely thank you all for listening, for participating. Please, I invite you to share instances where you have felt defensive and how you responded. Did it help? Did it hinder your situation? What might you have done differently with the insights from tonight's discussion? Leave those comments in the comments below, or I leave it in the chat. And one last thing, I ask for you to do this for me. Please join the conversations, man. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell with the notification icon, share this video, spread the wisdom that we're giving out. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok at BGC Club Podcast. We definitely want to have more engagement with you all. It takes two to tango, not one. So I appreciate you all for joining in, watching, participating, and so forth. Like I said, as always, embrace all these challenges, and thank you for joining us. We out.